The same people that Puffy, Biggie, and Bad Boy was using as protection when they came to LA, it's the same people that just happened to get into a fight with Tupac in Vegas. To me, man, that's a hell of a coincidence, man. I don't know about that.
I don't think anything is coincidental. Why would you tell the littlest in the crew that these are the guys who took my chain? Is over there on the other side of the casino, by the elevators. Why you didn't go tell Suge? Why you didn't tell one of the bouncers, one of the security, one of the bodyguards? Did anybody ever question him? Why you gonna tell the man who make all the money for us? That's a setup. They was setting that boy up, man. Do you understand what I'm saying?
What if everything you thought you knew about Tupac Shakur's death was a lie? What if he didn't die that night in Vegas, but instead pulled off the greatest vanishing act in music history? For nearly 3 decades, we've all been sold a story of a tragic ending on a dark street, a moment that froze time and changed hip-hop forever. But while the world has been mourning, a small circle of insiders has been whispering a different story. A story of a planned escape, a faked death, and a conspiracy so deep it goes to the very top. And now, with Sean Diddy Combs' empire crumbling under the weight of federal investigations and explosive allegations, those whispers are getting louder. The timing isn't a coincidence. It feels like the universe is finally ready to reveal a secret that's been buried for 28 years. By the end of this video, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about that fateful night. Now, let's go back to that night, September 7th, 1996. The air in Las Vegas is thick with adrenaline. A Mike Tyson fight just ended, and the city is buzzing. Tupac Shakur is riding shotgun in a black BMW, a brand new ride, looking like a king. He's fresh off a major victory, a heated confrontation with a rival in the lobby of the MGM Grand. He's on top of the world, feeling invincible. Suge Knight, the head honcho of Death Row Records, is driving. They're cruising down a busy street, windows down, music blasting. But as they pull up to a red light, a white Cadillac with 4 guys inside slides up on their right. The mood shifts in a heartbeat. The windows of the Cadillac roll down, and suddenly, the sound of music is drowned out by the thunder of gunshots. It's a quick, brutal ambush. A hail of bullets riddles the car. Suge gets clipped, but Tupac, he takes 4 shots. His chest, his hip, his hand, his lung. The official story is that he's rushed to the hospital, barely clinging to life, and 6 days later, he's gone. That's the story we all know. But what if that whole scene was nothing but a mirage? What if the chaos we saw was just a distraction? For years, people have been talking about Tupac's mindset in those final months. He wasn't just a rapper. He was a chess player. He was obsessed with Niccolo Machiavelli, the philosopher who wrote about deception and power. Tupac even started calling himself Machiavelli. But this wasn't just a cool new name. It was a whole new identity. His final album, released after his supposed death, was called The Dawn Illuminati, The 7-Day Theory. On the album cover, he's pictured as Jesus on the cross, a clear symbol of resurrection. The album's subtitle, The 7-Day Theory, was thought to be a reference to how long he survived in the hospital, but others believe it's a nod to a biblical prophecy about a return from the dead. And on the album, he spits a line that chills you to the bone. Exit Tupac. Enter Machiavelli. People called it eerie, but a few insiders saw it as a set of coded instructions. You see, Machiavelli was a master of faking his own death to escape his enemies. And with a price on his head and the feds watching his every move, a move like that might have been the only way out for Tupac. It was his last resort, a secret plan to outsmart everyone who wanted him silenced. So the question is, was this album a morbid farewell or a master plan laid out for those with the eyes to see? And what would it take for a man to truly disappear? This is where the story gets real. This is where Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, comes into the picture. For years, he was right there, riding in the armored trucks and posted up in the penthouses. He saw everything, and now he's talking. According to Deal, Diddy was acting real funny after Tupac passed. He was walking around with a swagger, talking reckless, like he'd won a chess match. Deal says Diddy was so sure he'd taken out his biggest rival that he went into gloating mode. But that swagger was built on a lie. According to Deal, Tupac was playing a deeper game than anyone knew. Tupac was always 3 steps ahead. He understood the bounty on his head had skyrocketed, and instead of waiting for the end, he flipped the script. He used his Machiavelli persona as his armor, his survival strategy. By deceiving his would-be executioners, he was able to vanish from American soil and start a new life. Deal claims that even Diddy himself, the man who supposedly orchestrated the hit, was fooled. Imagine Diddy sitting in his boardroom popping bottles, convinced he'd eliminated his greatest rival, never realizing the victim had sidestepped the bullet entirely. Deal's testimony paints Diddy not as the ultimate puppet master, but as someone who got played in his own game. He spent decades gloating over a victory that was nothing but a phantom. The man he thought he got rid of was out there somewhere, living a whole new life. But how do you just disappear? This wasn't a solo mission. This kind of move has a history rooted in rebellion and resistance. You have to remember, Tupac wasn't just a rapper. He was the son of the Black Panther movement. His mother, Afeni Shakur, was a powerful Panther. His godfather was a militant organizer who spent decades clashing with federal agencies. With roots that deep, it's not far-fetched to think there was a whole escape plan ready to go when things got too hot. Some insiders believe the Vegas hit wasn't just chaos. It was the signal for a carefully planned extraction. Who better to sneak him out right under the government's nose than a crew of people who know how to move in the shadows? What better act of resistance than protecting the voice of the most outspoken rapper of his generation? The theory gains even more weight when you remember his aunt, Assata Shakur. She's still one of the most wanted women in America after escaping prison and resurfacing in Cuba. If she could disappear from federal custody and find safety on an island that openly defies Washington, why couldn't her nephew do the same? Whispers suggest the very same channels that smuggled Assata to Havana may have been reopened for her nephew. For the Panthers, this wasn't just about saving a celebrity. It was about protecting a legacy. He wasn't only a rapper, he was the son of the movement, someone whose words carried the weight of rebellion. Every lyric about refusing to bow, every verse about fighting the system became proof he was more than just entertainment. He was a symbol they couldn't allow to be silenced. But let's talk about the cold, hard facts. Or in this case, the facts that don't add up. The official coroner's report listed Tupac at 6 feet tall and 215 pounds, but his friends and family all knew him as 5 feet 10 inches and 168 pounds. The autopsy photo? It's blurry, and it doesn't even show his famous tattoos, the ones he had all over his body, like the thug life across his stomach. The family was reportedly not allowed to view the body before the cremation, and the cremator who supposedly handled Tupac's body, he retired immediately after the job and just vanished. That vanishing act sparked decades of rumors. Was he silenced for helping switch bodies? Was the corpse even Tupac at all? These aren't just little details, they're giant cracks in the official story. They're the kind of weird, head-scratching things that make you think that the entire scene was a stage production, a carefully choreographed fake-out to buy time for the real Tupac to slip away. They make you believe that maybe, just maybe, the chaos we saw on the streets wasn't panic at all. It was choreography. By the time Suge Knight walked out of the hospital with bandages and a look of shock, Tupac was already headed to a hidden runway, disappearing into the Caribbean night. Official statements and blurred photos kept the public guessing, but the man himself may have slipped away. And then there's Michael Nice. He was a former security officer who swore to TMZ that he personally smuggled Tupac out of the country after the hit was ordered. He even claimed Fidel Castro himself sanctioned the escape. According to Nice, Tupac wasn't hit in Vegas. He was flown out with members of the Black Panthers, first to Barbados and then to Cuba. He said Tupac was chilling, acting as co-pilot, shaking hands with his rescuers like a man stepping into a new life. Nice described the tension in the air feeling like a prison break. The team was tight, the plan was flawless. The whole operation wasn't some last-minute stunt. It was sanctioned, a high-level escape. He said Fidel Castro himself signed off on it with strict conditions for his exile. Stay quiet, never admit he was alive, and avoid any exposure that could pull Cuba into an international scandal. And get this, just as he promised to release hard proof, news broke that Nice was gone. He was found lifeless under mysterious circumstances. Fans who followed his interviews didn't see it as a coincidence. Was it failing health? Or was he silenced to keep the truth about Tupac's survival buried forever? It just makes you wonder. When somebody that close to the fire disappears suddenly, suspicion doesn't fade. It spreads. The details Nice revealed before his demise only raised more questions. He spoke about a body switch inside the hospital, a massive sum of money paid out to make sure the story stayed quiet, and the sheer audacity of the entire plan. So let's bring it all back to today. Diddy is in the middle of a federal mess, with allegations of racketeering and exploitation. His former allies are finally breaking their silence. Gene Deal, his former bodyguard, is telling the world about the lies he saw firsthand. The irony is glaring. He might have believed he orchestrated the perfect crime in 1996, but if Tupac is alive, it means Diddy's victory was nothing but a hollow illusion. It's almost Shakespearean. A critic once described Diddy as a man with no class, no kindness, and no heart, just a depraved man whose world is rotten to the core. This whole mess we're seeing, it's not a new scandal. It's the final chapter of a story that's been unfolding for nearly 3 decades. The East Coast versus West Coast saga, long seen as a tragedy, gets reframed as a carefully crafted long con. And if that's the case, the story isn't finished. It's just getting started. The same way people question Jeffrey Epstein's death, we have to question this. When the stakes are that high and the people involved are that powerful, the truth rarely plays out in plain sight. What if we're all just watching the grand finale of a long-running play and the curtain is finally about to drop? The hints were always there. Fans were so obsessed with his final album, Machiavelli, the 7-Day Theory, that they started finding secret codes. They noticed that rearranging the letters in Machiavelli spells out, "I'm alive." For years, it was brushed off as just a weird coincidence. But what if it was a coded message? A secret instruction from an artist who studied the art of deception. If Gene Deal is right, this album wasn't a farewell. It was a plan, a blueprint to fake his own death and escape from the game for good. Then you have the strange inconsistencies in the official records that have haunted people for decades. The coroner's report listed him at 6 feet tall and over 200 pounds. But his friends knew him as a lean 5 feet 10 inches. The autopsy photos with their blurred tattoos never made sense to anyone. And the cremator, the man who supposedly handled Tupac's body, retired immediately and vanished from sight. That vanishing act sparked decades of rumors. Was he silenced for helping switch bodies? Or was the corpse they cremated not Tupac at all? And yet, the sightings never stopped. Havana locals whisper about a man who looks just like him walking through old Havana with a bandana and shades. His beard is thicker, his build broader, but the eyes, those eyes are unchanged. Others insist he's been spotted in Belize and even New Jersey. Grainy photos online claim to show him with Beyonce or 50 Cent. Most are dismissed, but they keep the belief alive that maybe, just maybe, Tupac isn't gone. Even his own mother once said he chose to leave quietly. Was it just poetry or a coded admission that he walked away on his own terms? The more these threads unravel, the less it looks like a crime scene and the more it feels like a stage production still unfolding. The truth is, even after all these years, the story of Tupac is a story of resistance. He was a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of rebellion, And in the end, maybe he became the ultimate rebel by refusing to be silenced. His music, his poetry, his interviews, they were all a part of a larger conversation he was having with the world. He was a man who challenged the system and paid the ultimate price, or so we thought. But if you listen closely to the rumors, if you follow the breadcrumbs left behind, you start to see a different picture. A picture where the hero doesn't die. He simply goes into hiding, waiting for the perfect moment to return and reclaim his crown. And with Diddy's current troubles, that moment might just be around the corner. The story isn't over. It's just getting started. What part of this blew your mind? Let me know in the comments below, and subscribe to the channel so you can be the first to know when we uncover the next layer of the truth.